later on Friday and indeed early on Saturday morning. Once again, though, temperatures falling well below freezing. I think across some of the snow-covered fields in Scotland, we could see lows of -10, so a biting cold start to the Saturday morning. As we go through Saturday, then, we keep some snow showers feeding in across parts of Wales. Rain at the coast, but snow inland. As we come further elsewhere across the country, there'll be still plenty of sunshine around, but some of those freezing fog patches could persist through the weekend, and it stays cold throughout. Bye-bye.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio or online, every morning it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Good evening. Tonight on Farage with me, Laurence Fox, we delve into the much anticipated Meghan and Harry mockumentary. Is it the explosive content they promised or more of a damp squib? Over in the US, the Trump Organization has been hunted by the left-leaning judiciary and convicted of tax evasion. I must stress, Mr. Trump strenuously denies the verdict and will be appealing it. So I'll be getting to the bottom of that. Then we are looking ahead to the quarterfinals as England hopefully see off France to get into the actual finals of the World Cup. Can they do it? And finally, a man whose career was spent running into the building you were told to run out of. He's written a book, he's lots of stories to tell, and that's all coming up after the news with Ray Addison.
Thanks, Laurence. Here's the latest from the GB Newsroom. The mother of Harry Dunn says her promise to get justice for her son is well and truly complete following the sentencing of Anne Sakoulas for causing his death by careless driving. The The wife of a US diplomat received 8 months in prison, suspended for 12 months. In 2019, she was driving on the wrong side of the road when she hit the 19-year-old and later pleaded guilty to causing his death. Mrs. Sakoulas says she's deeply sorry for the pain that she caused. Speaking outside the court, Harry's mum, Charlotte Charles, praised the verdict. And a warning for those watching on television, this clip contains flashing images.
You know, Anne Sakoulas has a criminal record for the rest of her life. That was something that, you know, she never thought she'd see, the US government never thought that they'd see. And we've worked tirelessly and relentlessly to make sure that she, in the end, still had to do what you and I would have had to have done. So, yeah, Harry, we've done it. And we're good. We're good.
The UK Health Security Agency has confirmed that 15 children under the age of 15 have now died from strep A. 13 children have died in England since September. 1 death has been recorded in Northern Ireland and 1 in Wales. Health officials say there's no evidence of a new strain, and the rise in cases is probably due to high amounts of circulating bacteria and increased social mixing. It comes as pharmacists continue to complain of a shortage of antibiotics. Well, meanwhile, waiting lists for routine NHS treatment in England have hit a record high, whilst A&E performances are at a record low. According to the NHS, 7.2 million people were waiting to start routine treatment at the end of October, and just 67% of A&E patients were seen within 4 hours of being admitted. Ambulance response times have improved, but are still more than 40 minutes behind the 18-minute target. The government has defended its decision to open the first UK coal mine for 30 years, saying it will create hundreds of jobs. The Levelling Up Secretary has given planning permission for the new mine in Cumbria, despite a government commitment to phase out coal. COP26 President Alok Sharma called the decision a backward step for UK climate action. Speaking to GB News, Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves refused to say if future Labour governments would close the pit.
We want to create jobs in the north of England, including in Cumbria, but we will be doing that by investing in the jobs and the industries of the future. We've got today a fossil fuel Prime Minister in the age of renewables, investing in the industries of the past rather than those of the future.
And senior palace sources are denying claims that the royal family declined to comment on allegations made in the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's Netflix series. It's understood that Kensington Palace did receive an email from a third-party production company, but attempts to verify it received no response. That contradicts a statement made at the start of the programme. In the series, Harry accuses the royal family of a huge level of unconscious bias. We're on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Back now to Laurence.
I can just feel my unconscious bias. Very itchy today. Anyway, I'd like to apologise in advance if I seem a tad subdued this evening. But when I received a WhatsApp message from my producer first thing this morning saying, remember, the Harry and Meghan documentary comes out today, we'll need to cover it, enjoy, followed by a winking face emoji, I can't say that my heart leapt. So today I have spent more time than I would have liked getting to know the real Harry and Meghan. Again, for those who missed the Oprah interview. So if I'm a bit miffed, it's because it bores me to tears giving these two airtime. Well, for one thing, the Markles don't really need to keep stabbing the monarchy in the front as they do in this documentary, gently but persistently, as our own King Charles, doing his best Neville Chamberlain impression, seems to be appeasing this 1,000-year-old sacred institution to the ground all by himself, with the way he's dealing with Marlene's entrapment of Lady Hussey and Lady Hussey's subsequent necessary and immediate sacrifice at the altar of white supremacy. On the plus side, I do have to say the documentary is rather well made. H, as he's called, is engaging and much more relaxed in private than when he's in public, and one does feel for him in parts. Meghan gives a masterpiece in how to gently undermine every custom Britain holds dear. Well, they both do, actually. Racism Brexit. Really, Harry? Do better, mate. As is always the case with these two, the conversation turns often and always to race. And once it's there, it's unable to move on. Meghan keeps going on about being black, which is so strange because A, she isn't, she's mixed race, and B, she looks to some people who are now too scared to ask where people are from, like she comes from Spain or Italy or somewhere like that. That's the problem with all this endless skin hewing. It invites division, and the Markles are there to pick up the cash. There is nothing more depressing than this never-ending hand-wringing about race and unconscious bias, which, by the way, is called ghost hunting to you and me, that so-called progressives are so keen on, especially seeing as the only open and acceptable form of racism permitted in the public sphere in the United Kingdom nowadays is against white people. Lucky us, who the documentary spends a good amount of time denigrating via thoughtfully soft-focused, rather snide interjections from extremely high-end race conjurers like David Olusunga and privately educated, supremely privileged Afua Hirsch. These aren't budget airline race baiters like Yasmin Al-Brown or Dr. Shola on this gig. This is the real deal. It is achingly slick as the piano mourns along its accompaniment to the Markles' everyday woes. And in many ways, it does exactly the job it's trying to do. Paint the two protagonists as victims whose suffering is permanent and unbearable. And it is the British press and the British public's fault because, yes, you guessed it, once more for those at the back, you're all massive racists. However, spinning this Sussex yarn does require some careful omissions to keep the narrative on track. Allegations about Princess Diana being hounded to death by the paparazzi, for example, rather than died at the hands of a drunk driver of the Mercedes she was so unfortunate to get inside. They come early on, and there is no footage of the well-wishers, dozens deep, offering their cheers at Harry and Meghan's wedding. Well, not least so far as where I've got to in the documentary before I needed to take a very, very long breather. I don't really have much else to say. I've had a few cameras shoved in my face over the years, and yes, it's unpleasant. I've also received horrible tweets and newspaper articles and people threatening to unload shotguns into my face, which isn't particularly enjoyable either. But this is the digital age, and the Markles are not unique in suffering the downsides of what life in the public eye brings, much as Meghan would love it if they were. Perhaps, who knows, they might both benefit from developing what we used to call a bit of a stiff upper lip, and trying to find time to enjoy the great privileges this genuinely progressive world has afforded them, rather than unloading about the unbearable systemic oppression which weighs so heavily upon them as they desperately try to lead a quiet, private life in their $30 million Montecito mansion in front of the eyes of millions on Netflix. I'm joined this evening by Michael Cole, former BBC royal correspondent. Michael, what have you watched?
I have, and you're quite right, Laurence. I mean, it's very slick, it's very glossy. Netflix have thrown a lot of money at this, but I fear that they've sorely oversold it. There are squibs, there are damp squibs, and there are squibs that are so wringing wet with self-justification and self-pity that they come out like the Harry and Meghan show. I don't think there's a great deal that's new in it. I don't believe anybody at Buckingham Palace or Kensington Palace is going to be losing any sleep tonight. If there's not much in the next 3 episodes, which we have to wait until next week.
There's 3 more.
Yes, 3 more. You're going to have to sit back and watch it all again.
My mum.
But really, who wants to listen to a 3-hour whine about poor me, all the terrible things that have happened to me in my life? And it doesn't sit well with people who are admired, who put up with things, the people in this country who at this moment are enduring hardship, not daring to put on their gas central heating because they can't pay the bill, or trying to get to work and wondering if the trains are going to be there or whether some eco-anarchists are going to be standing in the way from them getting to work. These are the real problems, Laurence, and only 2 time zones away from where we are at this very moment, people are being bombed, murdered, raped in Ukraine, an innocent country that's been invaded. So really, in the great scheme of things, what have they got to complain about? There they are, sitting on their rooftop, hilltop fortress in California. They're very good-looking people. They've got 2 beautiful children, healthy. They've got all the money that Netflix has given them. Apparently they're getting 19 million for this episode that we're watching. Everywhere they go in life, people smile at them and they want to please them. That doesn't happen to me in life. I don't know whether it happens to you. And if you looked the other night, New York, there was an awards scheme. And I looked at it very carefully because I used to be on the road as royal correspondent for many years. There was a huge bank of photographers. The Nikon Choir was there. If they wanted to avoid publicity, they could have been back in California feeding their chickens. But they wanted publicity when they wanted, and they didn't want it when they wanted. You're an actor.
Was. Want to be again.
Well, maybe you will again. She's an actress. She spent the whole of her life looking for attention and hoping that somebody would notice her. When she got tremendous fame that she could only dream of, she couldn't handle it, or could she?
I've known, I have to say, the number of Meghan Markles that I've met on film sets in the 22 years I worked as an actor, if I had £1 for every one, I could afford a very, very nice dinner. It's a certain type of character that, both male and female, but particularly in female actors, there's a level of narcissism which she expresses in that documentary. And the bit that really got me was when she turned around and she was shown her school book by her teacher in the California school, and she went, "When I'm rich and famous." So she'd planned becoming rich and famous, hadn't she? And then she criticises the British for being British. She says the thing about the royal family is they have to stand there and present, you know, a stoic view to the world. It's like, yeah, they do. That's what they do. They have to shake hands with 1 million people a day. You can't begin this banter. I felt that she just very subtly, and both of them did actually, very subtly undermined the very foundations of what it is to be British and to believe in our institutions and our cultural heritage.
And then, of course, brotherly love. I mean, we're not in the area of Jonathan and David. If we're going to the Bible, we're more in the area of Cain and Abel. And this is undoubtedly a very serious attack on Prince William and his wife. And if there are issues of veracity, in other words, if there's untruths told, I would give advice to the palace that they should, rarely they do this, but they should give a line-by-line rebuttal of what they think is wrong in it, because I think people expect that. We've got this vague allegation of racism, but nobody's named. No, it's not said what was said, who said it, where they said it, and when they said it, and what was said in reply. And the terrible thing about racism, which is the big no-no of the age, is that it's an easy allegation to make, and it's almost impossible to refute. It's impossible to prove a negative. And I fear, and you mentioned the case of Lady Susan Hussey, who I knew quite well, I fear that we're regressing to the 17th century Massachusetts, where overexcited, suggestible teenage girls could go around and say, she's a witch, and they hanged innocent women, or they killed them by putting heavy stones upon their breasts until they were dead.
But where is the...
Now all they have to say is, she's a racist, denounce her on social media, and 60 years of faultless, blameless service to the Crown is over in a minute.
But where's the campaign to support Lady Hussey? This is what I don't believe. I'm concerned that the British people aren't even on their own side. We've been beaten and battered and bruised by Harry and Meghan and this constant drive to tell us that we're all racist and we don't even know it. Even those people that aren't, so you're giving racist field day, but where is the campaign for Lady Susan Hussey to go give up her job back, King Charles?
I think there is one, and I think people will realise. You know, fair play is quite rightly a British characteristic, and I think fair play will come into
to play here. Look at me, okay? When I was at school 63 years ago, the Queen went to Ghana and she danced a dance called the High Life with the autocratic ruler of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah. And throughout her life, she built upon the creation of her father, King George VI, the Commonwealth. And nobody in this whole world has done more than Her Majesty the Queen to bring about harmony and good relations between the many races, every race, creed, colour and religion within the Commonwealth. When she started out as Queen in 1952, I think there were 37 realms. It would have been impossible for Her Majesty the Queen to be racist. She's above all that sort of thing, and nobody did more. And you don't have to rely upon me. You can see in the papers every day what the new king has done and has done throughout his life to improve harmony between the races. This country has been more welcoming, more tolerant, more inclusive than almost any nation on earth. I was talking to one of the protagonists of Black Lives Matter in another studio, a lesser station than this, and she agreed with me, you know, that this country has been broadly very welcoming. And I think if that is acknowledged, race relations would improve exponentially.
But possibly not by those who seek to gain profit from division. But Michael, thank you so much for coming in and being so articulate about the situation and voicing the views that I think so many people share.
Thank you.
Right. It's in every newspaper, on every news site and trending on Twitter. So I'm going to ask you, what's more important than Harry and bloody Meghan today? Email me, Farage@GB News UK, or use the hashtag Farage on GB News. Help us with a story. Michael Cole, former BBC royal correspondent, thank you for your analysis. Coming up, we will be speaking to a man who was senior advisor to the president after his company was found guilty of tax fraud. Back soon.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you know, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
There's a guy who went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. In reaction to my audience question, Steve says, I've just cancelled my Netflix subscription, maybe for a month, maybe for longer. Well done, Steve. Richard says, everything is more important than those two. I agree. I was so praying for something else to happen today so we didn't have to talk about them. Another says, what a random stranger had for tea this evening is more important than those pair. That is interesting. Annie says, everything. They have no importance whatsoever. I'm not sensing a lot of Harry and Meghan love, guys, from you tonight. Have we got something nice? Another says, the cabbage in my fridge. OK, look, he's back. Hot on the heels of announcing his bid to return as president in 2024, a court in New York has found Donald Trump's family property company guilty of tax fraud, a verdict he will be appealing. The Trump Organization was convicted of paying its bosses off the books with things like luxury cars and private school fees. That's never happened before, has it? So they could minimise the amount of tax they had to pay. After announcing his candidacy, will this conviction have any effect on the campaign? And is this just a case of left-wing judiciary in New York who've got it in for the former president? Joining me to discuss this is Jason Miller, senior advisor to the Trump while he was president and CEO of Getter. Jason, is this bad news for him?
No, not this particular case. The reality is, in the Republican primary, 75% of Republicans have a positive opinion of Trump, and he still leads in a head-to-head matchup with anyone else who's running. What a lot of folks in the UK might not realize is that the U.S. has already started to self-segregate on whether or not they think any of these investigations or trials and things of that nature have any merit. And people, if you're a Republican, most people think it's all nonsense. It's a witch hunt. If you're a Democrat, you want to see President Trump locked up. Here's the thing, is that Letitia James, who's the Attorney General of New York, actually campaigned in 2018 saying that she was going to lock up Donald Trump. I don't think he got a particularly fair shake, but this one, the business, I think there'll be maybe a fine of $1 million or $2 million. It won't impact any of the polls, though.
What did you make of Joe Biden saying last night that he's got 9 black women judges into the American legal system? I was just like, what are you talking about? Why are you talking about women and the colour of their skin and what difference that makes to justice, which is meant to be blind?
Well, so you make a really good point. It has nothing to do with justice. What it has to do is the fact that South Carolina and the support of James Clyburn, prominent African-American congressman, is why Joe Biden is president today, or why he at least was the Democratic nominee. And so Joe Biden actually said that he would nominate an African-American woman to the Supreme Court if he got the opportunity, and that's what he followed through and did.
And what do you think, obviously the left have a particular way of just trying to destroy everything, and free speech in particular, and Donald Trump is their bogeyman. Do you think that this is going to, affect his chances of standing? And what are your thoughts on DeSantis? Do you think he's going to come through too?
DeSantis is going to be tough. I take everyone serious, just as obviously with my day job of running a social media company, but as someone who is President Trump's former right-hand guy, I take all opponents seriously. DeSantis has a really good record. But once you start going down that presidential road, when you go through the primaries, Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, people start picking apart the smallest detail. How does your voice sound? What are your mannerisms? What do you sound like in a head-to-head when you're going against Donald Trump? There are a lot of folks who had big names that rolled up against President Trump in 2016. He mowed all of them down. But we'll see what DeSantis can do, but he'll be tough.
And what do you think about Pompeo? Do you think there are going to be others? Do you think Mike Pence is going to come through? What do you think is going to happen? How big is the line? How long is the line going to be?
Well, that's what everyone's doing right now, is they're edging up to that line with the hope that President Trump either doesn't run or maybe one of these investigations somehow knock him out. But that's the challenge, is that if you're waiting on some third-party action to determine if your opening is there, that's not a strategy. That's called a wish. A big Pompeo fan, big Pence fan, I don't think they have a chance against Trump. And actually, the more candidates that get in actually helps Trump. Keep in mind, he had, 15, maybe 16 opponents in 2016. So the more spread out the field gets, that leaves his base of about 40% the Republican primary rock solid.
And also, no one's really gone after DeSantis on a global scale, have they? He's not really shown what he would do foreign policy-wise, particularly. So
it's a really smart inquiry for the simple fact that DeSantis has a background of more of a traditional supply-side open trade type candidate. All of his record, I believe, was in Congress for 4 or 6 years. One of the two, I believe it was 6 years. In his time in Congress, very much anti-tariff, more of a free trader. Trump changed the Republican primary in 2016. We saw, and this wasn't just there, we saw what happened with Brexit, we saw what happened with Bolsonaro in Brazil. So DeSantis is now going to have to take this very anti-tariff record to the Republican primary electorate, which is now totally different than it was before Trump.
And it's interesting because Truss here, in her 44-day premiership, said that reclassified China as a strategic threat. And Sunak's gone back on that and said, whatever the lower version is, which is we'll do whatever the Chinese want. So that will matter with American voters, won't it? Hugely, especially Republican voters who are sick and tired of it.
Hugely. And as we get to one of your favorite topics, Hunter Biden and the Bidens, which I had to work in a Hunter Biden somehow. When it gets to the general election, assuming that Biden is still the candidate for the Democrats, that's not totally a done deal. He is 80 years old now. There are a lot of folks who are kind of hoping he slips on a banana peel.
Blinking less by the day, I've noticed.
It's suboptimal, the optics, at least as far as an American looking at it. But the fact is that Hunter Biden's laptop, the business dealings, not the pictures of him with the feather boa and the skivvies and all that stuff, but the actual business deals, particularly with China, is going to be a massive issue in the general election. That's why China matters.
Especially now that Republicans have the House. But what do you think gave such a poor showing? Where was this red wave, this red tsunami that we were all sat there expecting? Even people like Victor Davis Hanson were expecting, a huge red wave. What happened? Do we blame Mitch McConnell? Who are we blaming here for the...
Another good question. So I'd take it both as a macro and a micro. At the macro, it's not so much about assigning blame. It's more of assigning credit. Democrats really kicked the Republicans' rear end when it came to targeting, identifying, and mobilizing pro-choice voters, following up on the Supreme Court Dobbs decision. So it wasn't so much that Republicans did something bad. It was that Democrats are basically playing chess while Republicans are playing checkers with voter targeting and ultimately getting their votes turned in. Now, at the micro level, we did have a few duds as candidate. Some of those were backed by Trump. Some of those weren't backed by Trump. But we're going to have to do two things in 2024 if we want to win. Number one, got to make sure we have some better candidates in a few of these places. But then secondly, if we can't change some of these laws so they're not mass ballots going out to people, we better learn how to beat the Democrats at their own game. Otherwise, Republicans will be on the outside looking in after 2024.
Yeah, because the Republicans had nothing on this. They said that you're going to ban abortion. And the Republicans didn't push back on this. So when the mail-in ballot time came in, it became a huge issue. So should Republicans start exploiting the mail-in ballot system themselves?
If it's in a state where they don't control, say, the legislature and the governor, and they can't go back to same-day voting and paper ballots and things of that nature, then absolutely. They need to go and beat the Democrats at their own game. We didn't learn after 2020. We clearly, we'll see if we learn after 2022. I don't want to be on the outside looking in after 2024. So Republicans, time to get our acts together.
Well, I think if you need ID to get on a plane, then you should need ID to vote. And I also think that if you can't get out of bed, that should be the only reason why you can't turn up and vote in person should you want to vote. Jason Miller, thank you very, very much for joining me. Thank you, Jason. Right, is this more evidence that people are trying to block Trump? We will join you after the break.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store? You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Welcome back. Now, in just under 48 hours, not for the first time, our great nation will battle it out with the French for a place in the world. Stop it, Lars. Support is beginning to grow. More flags are appearing in the pubs are full. The party atmosphere is slowly, very slowly beginning to creep back. Now, I could make some cheap joke about if the players dressed up in rubber dinghies, would that make the French stop us? Who wrote that? But I won't go there. This is a positive section about the fun that football can bring us and its role in uniting our nation. One of the most important aspects of English football fandom comes in the form of the catchy songs that are blared out from radio stations, homes and pubs. So before I introduce our next guests, take a look at this and see if you remember it.
Sven, Goran Eriksson. He's a lovely geezer, but don't forget that he's from Sweden. There's Michael Owen and Heskey, that's his pal. We should shave off Seaman's dash and cut his ponytail.
Joining me now is the one and only Belen Sperling, best known for the Hit England song Sven.
Yes.
Lads.
Yes.
Lads. What's that? Lads. Now, listen. Some people say that Leonard Cohen, Hallelujah, is one of the great all-time songs.
Absolutely.
But for me, Sven.
I think it's up there, yeah.
How did it happen?
It's a really strange one, really. It sort of took us 10 minutes to write.
Yeah. Well, with a coffee break.
With a coffee break.
But how long was the coffee break? 9 minutes?
About 9 minutes.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
It was really weird. It was Andy Jacobs at Talk Sport asked us to write something about Sven. We used to do their show quite a bit.
Yes.
And we wrote the song about Sven, but it wasn't for about 6 months later. We had a show in Regent Street called Bell and Sperling Live on a Tuesday night, right? And our comedian was Jimmy Carr. We used to give him 60 quid.
Yeah.
And
He wouldn't take it now,
He wouldn't take it now. And then Robbie Williams turned up to see us that night. He'd heard about us singing. So we had this great show, and it just happened to be a guy at Capital Radio. Yeah. And he said, could you write some songs for Capital? And we said, well, we're going off to Marbella, weren't we?
We're doing Marbella. But the thing is with the Sven song, we did it in sections because when Tris Tarrant picked it up, he started playing it every day. Then there was the big game where we beat
Germany
5-1.
Oh, that was...
Remember that one? Yeah. So then we had really something to write about.
Yeah. But it was Tarrant who played it.
Yeah.
And suddenly, 6 weeks later, we were on top of the pops.
Yeah. With Page 3 Girls.
Page 3 Girls.
Not very
from the Sun.
PC today.
It's 2022, guys.
Can't do that.
Can't say anything.
Can't do that.
You can't say anything now.
No, you just have to nod and say yes, Mark.
Well, there was some people from the Sun newspaper.
Yeah. We had the Sven Girlies.
The Sven Girlies.
And we had Sven Girlies on the left, and we had the Page 3 Girls on the right. It was terrible.
Cancel them immediately and appeal to the nation.
It was shocking. It really was.
Well, the mad thing about it was it wasn't written originally as an England song.
No.
It was just written about Sven.
No, it is. If they say it's an England song, it was a song about a match.
Yeah, about beating Germany 5-1.
Yeah.
Which was, something to really remember.
We did do a version of it for the 2003 World Cup.
Yeah.
We did the World Cup version of it.
Right.
But that wasn't as good as the...
It didn't fly in that.
It didn't really.
fly. But it's still pretty popular because you've been out in the fan zones in the Middle East, which I'd like to show everyone now.
Oh.
Come on.
I haven't got it.
Oh, God.
I haven't got it.
They say to me, throw to a video at some point.
Yes.
And I go, all right, here I am.
Here we go.
Throwing to a video.
Come on, it's coming. It's coming.
No, it's not coming.
No, it's not.
Like,
look, we just...
There you go. I got no video. No. All right, do you think the World Cup is a bit flat with all the kneeling malarkey?
No. We went to Dubai. We was in Dubai.
Yeah, I know they had a video of it, but apparently...
But anyway, we had a great time. But out there... It was because it was sunny, and you were used to it being sunny in the World Cup. It seemed like the World Cup. Come back here, it's not.
But the great part was we were meant to go to Qatar to sing for the 3 England games, and the agent said, "Look, the party's going to be in Dubai because
they're playing it."
Okay, all right.
I bet you they don't.
There we go.
Hey, look at it.
Yeah, it was honestly, it was brilliant. Yeah, where was I? I wasn't there.
That was we just come off stage and we were partying with them. I think that's when England scored.
I
was there.
I want a bit of that. How can I cure myself of the kneeling phobia?
Get on the Emirates flight to Dubai.
Yeah.
Just come and watch you lads.
Well, we've got to do a gig. We've come back to do this gig.
You want to come back? I can tell you.
For some football fans that we're doing on Saturday, but they wanted us to stay in Dubai to do this week. But
if we beat France,
we're back.
We're back. And I have a feeling that...
you reckon?
Well, I just have a feeling that, Verdi's going to regret writing Va Pensiero instead of Sven.
Have you got a prediction?
My prediction is that England will probably snatch defeat from the jaws of victory as we always
like your optimism, my friend.
Please, God.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
Thank you very much.
Lovely to see you guys. Bell and Sperling. Right, let's see if the auto cue has decided to hate me even more. Coming up, we're throwing open the doors of the GB News Tavern for Talking Pints. We will be back soon.
Coming up on Dan Wootton tonight, as Harry and Meghan accuse Crown and Country of racism, even tearing down the late Queen's legacy by condemning the Commonwealth, Dan gives his unflinching take with royal insiders at the heart of the saga, including Tom Bower, Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier. Plus, Meghan's sister Samantha Markle reacts to being cast as the villain of her story. Join Dan 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. on GB News.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by 2 of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Laurence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Yippee! The GB News bar is open, so it can only mean one thing. Yes, it is Talking Pints. Joining me tonight is a man who ran into the buildings that you were told to run out of. I always respect firemen. A retired London Fire Brigade Borough Commander and author Steve Dudney. Welcome to the GB News Tavern. Cheers!
Okay, cheers.
What is it about firefighters that we admire so much and love?
I don't know. I think, I'd like to say because they can do no wrong. Obviously, they can do wrong. I think it's just something maybe there's a little bit of a ridiculous, it's not true, but a little bit of a knight in shining armour thing because they serve. But so do the military, so do the ambulance, so do the police. But we're not angels like nurses. But I just don't know what it is. I think there's it's an outdated image now of the modern day knight in shining armour. I think
I like the outdated modern day knight in shining armour.
When I first joined, I had a double-breasted tunic with silver buttons all down it. So maybe that image is there. But there you go. Yeah, there you go. There's
look at you,
young me,
handsome devil.
Yeah.
So you've written a book.
I have indeed.
The London Firefighter.
London Firefighter. Yeah, I couldn't think of anything more original than
that. Have a look. Have a gander at that.
Yep.
Look at that.
London.
This book's have been doing rather well, I gather.
It has, yeah. For an unknown, it's brand new for me. I always wanted to write a book, and there's a story behind that. But actually, I put it down on paper, and I was writing it on and off for years, taking notes, writing things down, and I felt I had a story to tell.
What's the story? What are you telling?
It's everyone's. So it's my career, in effect, from 1987 until I retired in 2018. But it's the story of being a firefighter during that period. So it's everyone's story told through my eyes. I didn't really feel, obviously I don't tell other people's stories, but I found surprisingly, everyone is really related. I've had people write to me and say, you know, I was really feeling down over the fire brigade, but you've re-inspired me again. Some people, I know some complete strangers. I had a message from a former colleague yesterday who's been out of the service for a few years. He was a really good fire investigator, really, really up there, you know, investigating all the, really detailed stuff. And he said...
What, like Backdraft, when he's like walking
that's
through
him,
going,
that's the guy.
I love that.
Yeah. That's the
Didn't
guy.
use that much CGI in that film. It's one of the last films that they used a lot of CGI. There's a lot of real fire in there.
Fantastic. And that was quite early on in my career, so I loved that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, that was a great film. But, and he's now back into a private fire investigation firm because he'd gone off of all things fire. But so I'm really pleased. I didn't expect it to be as successful. And I'm no expert writer, but apparently it's just resonating with people.
Well, you never know. And obviously, also in this week, when there's a lot of political stuff going around the fire service and all this sort of stuff, it's quite nice to just take a step back from that and understand what it is to
see it
to put yourself in there.
Yeah.
But were you one of those kids who went, I want to be a fireman?
Yes,
you were.
Never grew up.
But you do grow up. It's like, it's amazing to think that.
I never. It was all what I wanted to do. I lived in the East End, which was very busy for fires, with the old derelict docklands and things like that. So my nan lived on the 11th floor of a tower block in Limehouse, overlooking the river, all Canary Wharf and all that. But as a kid, I used to stand there looking out the windows at these warehouses burning, and I really loved it. We did a school nursery visit to the fire service from one of the fire stations I was eventually in command of. Ironically, I ended up in command of the area where I grew up, you could never talk me out of it. I think maybe around the time of the Falklands, I wanted to be a helicopter pilot for a few weeks, but I just never dropped it. And then at 18, I was in. I wanted to join.
I can just imagine going on holiday with you. You're like, let's try it. Let's give it a go. All we have to do is jump off the top of the cliff. We'll land totally fine. We'll be all right, mate.
Yeah.
All right. Obviously, we've got to get into really serious matters.
Yeah.
The fire brigade is institutionally misogynistic. It's very, very worrying.
Yeah,
How do you feel about that?
I don't recognise that London fire brigade.
What?
I don't recognise. But
you're a racist.
I know, but I don't know. I was a white male in the fire service, and I was a...
That's what a lot of people see as London, as a, you know.
And I was a senior officer, so probably there was a little bit of like the king. Well, the king always smells fresh paint, so wherever I went in my stations, they behaved. But I was quite down with the crews and the watches. I was quite close to the people I work with. The biggest fear of firefighters, in my opinion, is that they would lose their job, because it's always there that you would lose your job for being racist, for being sexist. So I'm not.
How long are you going back there? When did this movement say? You're talking about people that put out fires for a living. Mm-hmm. Now that can come from a woman's heart, a man's heart, anyone's heart to go. I want to save lives.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. And certain institutions are going to have a more male-driven need, and certain institutions are going to have a more female-driven need. When did you notice this kind of stuff infecting the?
It's been a long while. It's been more than 20 years. I mean, I remember doing training to recognise that. So I'm not saying it isn't an issue. I don't reckon. I think what we've got is the report's been pulled together by London Fire Brigade for a reason, and I've not read the report because I'm nothing to do with London Fire Brigade anymore. It really upsets me that they've believed that, but I think probably my analogy, if you get a spider expert to go into the garden and look for spiders, he's going to find spiders, and he might not see the bumblebees and the flowers and all the pretty things. So that might be an analogy. If someone's gone to look for something, I'm not saying it doesn't exist for 1 minute, but if you've looked for something, you're going to find it. Because like I said, I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but it isn't the London Fire Brigade. They were good people. Generally speaking, I knew lots and lots of firefighters because it was a vocation for me. I was quite well known because of the time I served and the area I worked and the area I covered, basically. And I never found... There were always pockets of trouble. And believe me...
there always will be pockets of trouble.
And the unfortunate part of my job, as doing the job I was, occasionally people came up in front of me for disciplinary offences, and they were dealt with swiftly. And so...
Would you apply the same level of... so if you were still in the job today, would you apply exactly the same rules today as you did then?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because they
Common sense. Is that what we're talking?
And yeah, there's no. So it's all about doing the right thing for the people who pay your wages, like the public. That's what you're.
What a lovely thing to hear from a public servant.
Yeah, that's and that was always what I said to trainees. Basically, every time I sat down with a new recruit or a trainee, I'd say to them, my expectation from you is, what do you expect? Where do you live? And they'd say, oh, I don't know, I live in Romford. What do you expect from the firefighters of Romford if your house is on fire? Well, I expect they get there quickly. They're well trained. They can do this. And if your kids are stuck in the back bedroom, they go up and rescue them, because that's what we're asking you to do. If you're not interested, don't do the job. But that's what we want. So I said, brilliant. I'm glad you understand that. So you understand that for the people of Hackney and Tower Hamlets, which is the boroughs I cover, they expect that of you. That's the contract. That's the contract you've got.
Yeah, maybe more of that, less misogyny reports.
Yeah. It comes from somewhere without a doubt, but it's not. I don't recognise that. But of course, I don't recognise that because
That's because you're a diplomatic man who's done a lot with your life, and we should be grateful to you every day. Thank you so much, Steve Dudney. Right. Coming up next, it's Mark, Dolan in for Mark Stein. Mark, what do you have in store for us? Mark!
Let me send you... I want to send you some Benylin or a Linctus to soothe that throat of yours. A really busy show tonight. We're dealing with the fallout from that documentary. We'll go live to the United States. And the queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield. How is it going down in America? Kelvin McKenzie live in the studio talking about how the press are going to deal with this couple in the weeks and months ahead. We're also going to speak to a top historian with a rather arresting question for you. Could Harry and Meghan bring down the British monarchy? Are they a clear and present threat to our wonderful, much-loved King Charles? So we'll get to all of that, plus your emails, gbviews@gbnews.uk. And is the popularity of this couple, at least their big footprint, good news for woke people? We'll be asking Toby Young. See you after the news.
Hello again, I'm Luke Mile with your weather forecast. As we head through Thursday night, a very cold one on the cards for many with a sharp frost, and we keep the risk of snow and ice. That's because our air is coming down from the Arctic, a very cold air mass. You can see the blues flooding the map there, and that will give us the risk of some very cold nights, particularly as we go into the weekend as well, with the risk of freezing fog. But back to the here and now. Through this evening, we've got the risk of ice across parts of West Wales, the southwest of England and eastern counties of England. These are the areas we've seen showers through the day. We've also got a snow and ice warning in place across Scotland. Temperatures sub-zero under those clear skies, perhaps as low as -8 or -9 out in the countryside. For many, though, there will be some sunshine as we start the day on Friday. A few mist and fog patches around and a bit more cloud for London and the southeast of England. But this will soon start to ease away, and then, as I say, for many, plenty of sunshine. But we do keep the showers for western parts of Wales, drifting in through the Cheshire Gap as well, and snow showers continuing for Scotland. That warning remains in place. Temperatures really struggling, 2 to 5 Celsius, the very max. And as soon as that sun sets on Friday night, we'll see that frost developing quite widely on the map as well, with lighter winds and a bit more moisture across England and Wales. Some dense freezing fog patches will develop. This could cause some disruption if you're travelling later on Friday and indeed early on Saturday morning. Once again, though, temperatures falling well below freezing. I think across some of the snow-covered fields in Scotland, we could see lows of -10, so a biting cold start to the Saturday morning. As we go through Saturday, then, we keep some snow showers feeding in across parts of Wales. Rain at the coast, but snow inland. As we come further elsewhere across the country, there'll be still plenty of sunshine around, but some of those freezing fog patches could persist through the weekend, and it stays cold throughout. Bye-bye.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by 2 of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stumped.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Laurence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB